čuješ nikakvo zujanje.
Ne. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Serbian Corner. Hope you hear me. Yes, you do. Show where a couple of Serbians talk about the Nuggets on DNVR YouTube channel, DNVR Nuggets podcast feed, everywhere you find podcasts and all that stuff. My name is Voya, back in the States, back in Lincoln. Here with me today is Miroslav, as always. How are you? What's up?
Excellent. I'm on the non-COVID illness kind of a treatment right now. I had to miss my pickup basketball game today, and that makes me very sad. But at least I have something else to be feeling strong about right now.
Yeah, so. Exactly. We have a 4-0 week, so at least something to be excited about. We kind of started this show when it was on the downturn, and hopefully, I mean, we're gonna say it's because we started this show, then I started playing better. So
no, there is no question that's the reason why they started playing well. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So we'll go into the show. We start with Serbian Fun Fact, and this week it's really a fun one because Jokić got selected to his 4th All-Star game, and he's a starter for the 2nd time in a row. That's the most any Serbian player had in the NBA. The second most is Peja Stojakovic with Sacramento Kings. He had 3, and Divac had 1. So Jokić is ahead in that region too. So that's a pretty cool thing. And as well, he won Player of the Week for Week 14. And will he win another one? What do you think?
Right now they're 3-0. They would be 4-0 if the good people of the NBA counts Sunday as the first day of the week. But because it's the weekend when the Sunday is and not the week beginning, that's why they don't. So hopefully they can squeeze a win against Milwaukee as well. And if they go 4-0, that's a surefire player of the week again. But maybe even if it's 3-1, I think there are still good chances for that.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm hoping too, because Phoenix has been playing well, and if Booker hasn't been playing that well, he might have been the player of the month. He might have had that previous week as well booked, and so we'll see. I mean, the numbers are insane still, and I don't know. I'm happy to just see him play better, and the team's kind of clicking and starting to click. And what else was I gonna do for this one? What do you think about? Or should we go to Rakija's, or is there anything else with Jokić you want to mention for this week?
We could move to Rakija's. Yeah,
I mean, it was the most triple doubles in the season so far, and he has obviously he's climbing up that ladder of the most triple doubles ever. All that stuff, like 5,000 rebounds, 3,000 assists list. Like with him, his records are we just start to forget how many he's breaking.
Yeah, actually, this is the second time in his career he has 6 triple doubles in 1 month.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the only other center that did it, well, probably not multiple times, probably ever did it, was of course Will Chamberlain.
Well, I think it's like 6 months like that. Yeah, or 4 times. Yeah. It's insane. I mean, what he's doing, like. It's hard to even grasp anymore. Like we talked with Vote in the backstages, like he gave him an A- on the player grades, and like, well, it is. I mean, for his standards, that's kind of what the grades are. So we'll see. I mean, the MVP race heating up and all that. We'll talk about that later. And now we'll get into our Rakija Shots, our national alcoholic drink, usually taken before dinner. So what this segment would be like a quick headline, something that made an impression on us quickly and strongly this week. So we'll start with Miroslav. It's one of the topics that he had in mind. It was pretty cool to me too. What's up? What are we drinking
Uh,
first?
yeah, well, I was looking at the last 12 games of Nuggets basketball. They've been 9-3 for these 12 games, and they actually got healthier for these 12 games. Their records started turning in the right direction immediately. They had only Jeff Green missing one game, Bones missing two, but one of them was a DNP CD. Davon Reed also missed two, but both of them were DNP CD, so he could have played there. Austin Rivers and Will Barton are the only rotation guys that have missed three, and JaMychal Green actually missed a lot of the games recently because of the protocols. But I think he's actually moving away from the rotation right now. It might change soon because it's Michael Malone. It's possible that he will just return his guy back. But right now, because he's slowly getting back to the team, he is kind of out of rotation or on the outside looking in. But other than having most of their guys available for these 12 games, we had Nikola Jokic playing monstrous games, and it actually coincides with having good players around him because he has threats around him. Other teams cannot put three guys on him on every possession, although I would say that New Orleans did a pretty good job in the first half against the Nuggets with doubling Jokic and making him make some uncharacteristic mistakes. But that's more on him than on them because it's not something he never saw before. So it's just a side note. But anyway, in these last 12 games, Jokic had 27.5 points, 12.8 rebounds, 9.3 assists on 59, 44, 89 shooting splits. He also played for 34.5 minutes in this span, which is more than his normal average of 33 minutes per game. That doesn't sound like a lot, 1.5 minutes more. But if you take a look how Denver Nuggets play in separate quarters, depending on whether Jokic is on the court or not. Brendan, can you give us the graphic? So you can see that Jokic is playing practically the same. In the parentheses, you see the. Did I use the right word? The second number you can see in each column is the number for the whole season. So Jokic plays 9.8 minutes per first quarter throughout the season, and it's the same for these last 12 games. In the second quarter, he stayed completely the same, but the uptick became visible in the second half because he is playing those 1.5 minutes more in the second half, and it actually makes a change. I know it's not only that, it's also the other guys playing with him, but you can see that they've actually turned around the things in the third quarter, where they now have 20.4 positive net rating in third quarters, and it used to be almost close to zero. And even the fourth quarter disaster that was minus 12.6 net rating decreased to minus 8.1. I was trying to see if we could maybe uptick his 4 quarter minutes a bit more, but honestly, I don't think it's possible. He's already playing almost 35 minutes per game, and you can see that Malone is pretty religious about in which quarter Jokic plays how many minutes. He's still very heavily involved in first and third quarter, and then he finishes the second and fourth. And the addition of Boogie, Cousins, and Bryn Forbes, along with having all of Barton, Gordon, Jeff Green, Monte, should help Malone bring Jokic minutes back to 33, not going up even further. And it was a strength of schedule. We have to accept that as well. But they were ranked second in offense in the last 12 games, and also 13th in defense, which is not too bad. So, in conclusion, don't ask for more from Jokic in the clutch. Just play better players around him. And by the way, since we last spoke about their record in the clutch games 3 weeks ago, they went uh, 5-2 or 6-2 in those games. So now they're 12-8, which is much better than what we spoke about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I
three
mean,
weeks
you're
ago.
right with the strength of players around him. That's usually, I mean, it's you can't like have one player because again, we saw the Clippers games and stuff. How they play defense in the clutch, it changes. Like it's not the same as in the first quarters, and first halves of the games. Well, with the numbers in fourth, I mean, the only solution again would be just to redistribute, but then we become Utah Jazz, and I really don't want that. So just to have like a stagger and take him out earlier in the third maybe, or earlier in the first quarter, and then like have him redistributed that way. Like I like it what it is. Like if the second unit can give you like like last night 5 minutes quality minutes in the fourth, and keep the distance, and or just keep the game within reach, I think that's enough for Jokic to play. And I think that's what in this season, that's probably what caused that negative net rating, because it kind of drips from the third quarter when the second unit comes in and you have 2 or 3 minutes in the fourth where every team picks up the intensity. Then our bench, that was basically our third string lineup, was a little bit worse, and so that's where their deficiencies would probably come into play. So I mean, I agree. Just for now, I think like let's have everyone healthy and just see where we go from now, and then there's a last portion of the season where you can see if you want to experiment or anything like that. So so what we're next, we're gonna have like three shots on this stuff. We had the fourth quarter stuff. We're gonna go into talk about a little bit about Austin Rivers. There's a question, is he a ball stopper? And is he a Jokic player? Because he has that tendency sometimes to record scratch, and he loves that one-on-one game and his jab step stuff that people much malign jab step. And within recent games, we've kind of seen him be more aggressive, and that kind of bore fruit with his efficiency in shooting and just the quality of shots he takes and just amount of points he had on obviously in the last few games. So what do you think about that? Is he a ball stopper to you, or why
Yeah, I think
why does he have that stigma?
Yeah, I think it's a bit unfair to call him just a ball stopper, and I will explain why he gets such a negative rep. Austin, first of all, also benefited from the team having more good players on the court. Of course, he is more free to play. And in his last 9 games, he appeared for the Nuggets. The Nuggets were 8-1. It's not only because of him, but he was a really good contributor. He scored 10.6 points per game on 53, 48, 80 shooting splits. That's not a small sample. That's a 9-game sample. Those numbers match the eye test, because since everybody noticed Austin was playing better lately, especially, of course, in that game versus Brooklyn. My theory on why Austin is considered the ball stopper is that he has too much skill in combination with not enough athleticism. He refuses to take a wide open three because he wants to start himself up with an easy layup. So instead of shooting, he dribbles and tries to finish under the rim, but he lacks athleticism to finish there every time. This, of course, wasn't the case against Brooklyn, where he shot like 7 from 10 from 3. So he didn't need to warm himself up over there. So basically what I want to say is he thinks he has more athleticism than he does, and there are some other things that I will try to show you. Ben Taylor, a friend of the DNBA show, did some excellent work on different kinds of athleticism before. I'm not as smart as him, so I'll make it much simpler. For me, athleticism comes from several prerequisites: heights, wingspan, strength, quickness, and vertical. Brendan, can we get the spreadsheet for that? So, thinking about this, not that one, the other one. We'll do it live. Don't worry. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. And it's not very complete. I messed up the colors, but I'll explain. So if we look at Rivers here, he has a height of 6.4, which is average for his position, but his wingspan of 6'6" is actually below average for his position, and that doesn't help him on defense, but also doesn't help him on offense, because when he's driving with the ball, he could use a couple of inches more to be able to shoot over the defender. And also, this is what I put for his strength, quickness, and vertical. They're just average next to his ball skills, basketball skills, which are quite high, as I feel.
Jokic has one red.
Yeah, Jokic had to have one red because, yeah, he is slightly above average in height and wingspan. He's extremely strong in strength and quickness for his position as well. Basketball skills, of course, off the charts, but vertical, I would have to agree it's below average for his position and any position really. So after that, you can see Gordon and Jeff Green, who are just green all the way. They are very average in size, both on height and wingspan, but all the other things are going their way quite nice. And I also put here Facu. You cannot see the colors because I messed up the first two columns, but his height and wingspan are of course below average, and that's actually the only real limiting factor for him because he has extreme basketball skills and he's really quick, but it's just limited how far he can go in the NBA today. So basically, what I wanted to say, yeah, Austin Rivers was called ball stopper because he wouldn't just shoot right away as he gets the open shot, because he thinks and he knows he's a 35% shooter. He will not shoot 7 of 10 every time. He wants to work himself at, and that's the reason people don't consider him a Jokic player. But I think there is so much more to tell about him than just that.
Yeah, the with him, I mean, he there was that the conversation he had with Malone, and I'm willing to bet that one of them was that being relax, because the thing, he's not stupid and he knows the percentages and he knows like the shots, and maybe even like during the games you kind of can feel if you have it on or not. And so it could be a situation where he has the ball and he's like, I don't think I should shoot this, and so you try to get a better shot, and then that ends up being a worse thing than the original idea. And so I think I can, again, speculating that Malone might have talked to him about that stuff, just like being more relaxed and just if the natural result of the play is your open shot, shoot it. Like it doesn't matter. You miss. Like, I mean, it couldn't get much worse. Like not just for him, just for the whole team. Like couldn't get much worse for missing threes after that Clippers game. So might as well just let it rip. And especially with how Jokic passes the ball to guys, that's like an underrated aspect of shooting in general. Just where do you get the ball when you're open? That like pass with the Clippers that Gordon catches it right in the breadbasket. That's kind of the stuff like with Rivers too. I suspect like with shooters that are not percentage wise like elite in the NBA, with them like that catch and shoot, like making them feel like they're in practice is like the key for me for good shot making. So I think that also helps with Jokic when you have him just passing it to you and perfectly, and you don't even think that you're in the game. You just catch it where you would in a practice. So that's kind of stuff. What's up, Brandon?
I got a question for you guys. This rotation is about to change a lot. Approaching deadline, guys coming back. Where does Austin Rivers fit in sort of as we go through those check marks? I mean, is he a part of the rotation long term? He's been sort of don't play at all or spot start lately. Like, how do you guys see him?
I see it as probably like what PJ Dozier was last couple of years, maybe just like depending on the situation or even health. Like he might be out. Like if you get Murray back, then it's gonna probably be between him and Forbes. We can transition honestly. Like we can. My shot was the second unit realignments. So Boogie, Forbes, Rivers in the with the second unit. So this kind of fits well with that question. What happens when Jamal gets back, because then you have Monte in the second unit. We saw Facu, leave the rotation yesterday in the second half, and it kind of looked a lot better. Honestly, I know it's the Pelicans, but the same Pelicans, kicked their ass in the first half with Facu and JaMychal Green, and we had Zeke and Boogie, and then you had Forbes and Rivers and Bones. So that kind of worked well. So what do you think? What happens when Monte gets into that lineup? Who's the odd man out? Is it Rivers or is it Bones? Or I don't think Forbes is because he's shooting. But
Yeah,
What do you think?
well, last week I was a bit hot takey, asking for Forbes to be part of a starting lineup, and we actually saw that in the first game right after the show. He was the first guy off the bench, joining the starters for a couple of times, and I think it looked quite good. It wasn't bad. The thing about that unit you spoke about, I really like it, because a couple of days ago people were pushing for the lineup of Bones, Forbes, Reed, and then Nagy and Cousins. And even though I like that lineup defensively, I don't think there is enough ball handling on that lineup, because you only
right
have
there. Yeah.
you only have if they somehow shut down Bones, you have no other ways to deal with it. But with Rivers, who is a really good ball handler and a really smart player, I really like that unit. Even uh, uh, I mean, despite of it being a bit smaller than what the one with Davon Reed would look like. So I agree. I really think that Rivers, if nothing changes in the roster at the trade deadline, if everything stays the same, I think he has a spot in the playoffs even before Forbes. I think he could get more minutes than Forbes, but I do agree that on some games Forbes will take his minutes and vice versa. So that's really cool. And as I said, the lineup with Facu last night kind of worked for half the stint, and then when the quarters turned, it was just a disaster. It was just a disaster.
I see him.
They were settling for Gordon trees because nothing else was working. And I agree that the second stint of the backup of the reserves team was really good in third and fourth quarter without Facu.
That's my thing too. Like with Monte, let's assume Jamal gets back fine and he's in the starting lineup and Barton's there too. Then you have Monte and Bones, so it's between so you have like ball handling, two ball handlers, and then Rivers could be an odd man out if you want to keep Forbes in there, and then you have your Zeke and Boogie. In case you want more defense, maybe then you shift a little bit. And I saw Tyler Peters said Bones will lose a spot down the stretch. That could happen, like where well could happen against better teams. Some of his flaws might get more exposed, and so if Monte's already there with your ball handler, he might be the odd man out, and then you have your veteran lineup of Monte, Forbes, and Rivers. Again, it's short lineup, but like I still think Rivers can service some stuff that PJ Dozier was, even though he's not that long and big. But defensively, he can at least bother some people and not have a complete negative on there. And then you have Davon Reed situationally, like I would still want to use him. And then again, Facu, like depending on what how the day goes and what you have, like you might put him in. This is like I don't know if we're not still talking about the playoffs. I'm still like kind of in the regular season still. You put him in against these like worse teams, maybe like get into head some of the young guys and stuff. So that's my. I still think Malone should like keep doing what he's doing. Like he experimented within this game. Like he was trying Jermichael for Zeke. He was trying these other things, and then eventually I think this is a good second unit until Jamal gets back to actually have all the points you said. Like you hit Forbes, they can actually get out of a screen without any doubling because there's no Facu causes that people to back off, and so that means like a lot of screens are going to get covered better, or the pick and roll partner with Cousins and Facu is. I mean, if they roll like 3 or 4 times, Cousins is going to die on us on the court, like how he's conditioning right now with Facu. So like they really didn't do any favors with Facu, for Facu on the roster, but like he's not the guy that we should be building around. He's just like a serviceable guy when it's necessary because he doesn't get hurt, knock on wood. So I think he's a situational guy, but like I'm glad that he kind of that Malone trusted Bones at the end to run that unit because you can see a difference in him as a different player completely when he plays that instead of when he plays with Facu and then Forbes in the same lineup. It's off to me at least.
Yeah, and funny thing about Boogie, the Nuggets needed the backup center so bad that we're already counting on Cousins to be a part of the team for the rest of the season and even part of playoff rotation, even though he is still on his, well, actually his second 10-day contract now, because we had the news from Katie Vinci yesterday. Just as a side note, I would argue that the Nuggets played better basketball on average for 48 minutes when they had Mason Plumlee. What I want to say is Michael Malone is more of a traditional coach than he thinks he is. He wants to play small ball, with the second unit, but he just does the best thing when he has a real big on the court. And Cousins makes Zeke Naji life easier because the smaller guy has
big one for me.
Has to guard him. Even Facu looks better next to Cousins because of the gravity he has in the paint, and he plows through the opposition for rebounds on both sides of the court. And I agree with Adam that he has been a positive addition to the team in spite of being quite bad individually. He was really bad. He's shooting the ball
that's
bad.
The thing. That's the relative point. Like, what does it mean that is like not you, but in general, what does it mean that he's bad if he has a good effect on the
that's right.
The team?
I agree.
Like you play to win the game and you play for the team to be better. I don't care if he's 1 of 5. If he's still gonna make the defenses honest and follow him on the 3-point line and open up the paint, and then also he's gonna be a wrecking ball. And another thing, I was joking, we did the Serbian podcast before today, and about one of the aspects of Boogie Cousins coming in was half joking, but like also could be like really true. He's such a, he's like that nervous energy that he comes in with the refs and he gets technicals and he yells at them all the time and he's like a mean guy, kind of how he looks on the court. I think that might have raised like the criteria for the refs in the Nuggets games, because up till now, like they're all kind of mellow, and when Jokic loses his cool, it looks worse than it actually is, and so refs react on like, oh, everyone was quiet, so now he's yelling, he might get he's going to get a technical, maybe even ejected. And with Boogie's there, they know Boogie, so they're already prepared that what's going to happen with like complaining to the refs, and then he actually yells at them. But then when Jokic does it, compared to that, it doesn't seem as bad. And so we might have seen yesterday, like Boogie was still like doing his confused faces on some of the calls and yelling at them, and then Jokic does it and he didn't get ejected. And it could be that, it could be what Brendan said in the postgame. Maybe the ref and crew was a little more lenient, but I'd like to believe that it also has like some Cousins effect. And then also we have him for like 12 minutes, 6 fouls a game. He can come in, beat the crap out of some centers that are giving us trouble, like just a big body. And then the final thing, the biggest thing for me is Zeke is a little bit unlocked with him, because he'll have a shorter guy on him. He can shoot a 3 over guys, but then running through the paint is much freer than when he had to do center duties. When he had to go play pick and roll with Facu with Bones, it just didn't look the same when he was a center compared to like when Boogie Cousins is center right now. So that's like a cool thing. And then finally, JaMychal Green stepping out of the rotation. What do you think about that? Because he has a decent enough contract. Is he going to be out, or you think it's just a temporary thing?
You want to move to the trade talk?
Let me see. Yeah, we can go. This will be our Fish 2 disagreements. So this is our first. We're debuting, I guess, the segment today because we didn't have any disagreements so far. But so this Fish 2 is like a very popular, also unpopular dish in Serbia. So I don't like it at all. Miroslav loves it, and then Jokic also loves it. That's like his thing. That's like the North Serbia traditional dish. So we're gonna discuss something that was like either polarizing in the Nuggets, sphere, or something that just two of us don't agree. And so the first thing we wanted to talk about this time is going to be trades, because two of us had a disagreement about one trade, and then we can get into whatever Nuggets need maybe, and what kind of trades can come up in the deadline. So you start us off. What do you think first?
Yeah, well, I was a bit surprised that the trade deadline is only like 2 weeks, 20 days away, so it's not that far away, and it kind of sneaked on us.
It's
quite
on the 10th,
quickly.
right? February 10th. It's a week.
February 10th. Oh, it's even
10th.
less.
It's the
10th. Okay, so less than 2 weeks now. Okay, so the whole thing for me started with a George Karl tweet. I'm a huge fan of George Karl, and his tweet said, I said last week Nikola Jokic is on a path to become a top 10 all-time player, but this status for a player requires championships. Can the Denver Nuggets organization put a team together that supports that trajectory? And of course, George is talking about adding to the team that they already have. And George is a no bullshit guy, and this tweet is exactly how any head coach thinks. We need to win, and we need to win now. Coaches are not fans. Real fans will be there in a year or 5 years, but the coach might not be there. Since I'm not the coach, I will take a little caveat here. If the Nuggets think it is probable to get both Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back before the season ends, they should try and swing for the fences. However, it will not be as easy as it was last season. The Nuggets do not have a Gary Harris-sized contract to make the money work. My target for today is inspired by our guy Connor Ducey. His tweet proposed a Monte Morris for Derek White trade. First of all, we have no idea if White is in fact available in trade talks. But let's say the Bryn Forbes trade might not be the only in-season trade for the first Spurs this season. Of course, you screamed immediately, no way, at that tweet. And I have to say, I agree with that. But more on them
no one
in a couple of minutes. I have 3 different trade packages for Derek White, and I'll start with the least probable. Well, maybe not as improbable as I think at this moment, but this is the best one from the Nuggets perspective. Harrison mentioned on Wednesday's show that he thinks JaMychal Green is the most probable asset to be included in a deal because his contract makes the most sense. It's about $9 million for this and the player option for next year. But that player option means that he has a de facto no trade clause, so he could reject going to San Antonio. So that's a caveat we need to understand here, but this is the idea. The Nuggets would get Derek White for J-Mike, and this is the hard part, Bones Highland and Zeke Nagy. I don't think the San Antonio would trade Derek White only for J-Mike and Bones or only for J-Mike and Zeke because Derek White is a really good player and he is in his prime. He has 3 more years on his contract, a pretty friendly contract after this season, and this would be a really hard pill to swallow. But as Adam mentioned a couple of days ago, we have no idea if Bones will be playing in this year's playoffs. And the same goes for Zeke. I mean, I think Zeke right now looks like he is closer to the playoff rotation, but who knows? J-Mike might just come back and everything will get back to where it was a month ago. So this idea, if you get a Derek White type, you would get the Nuggets rotation with everybody back. So the starters would be Jamal, Will, Jeff Green, Gordon, and Jokic. I would still leave Jeff Green in the starters. And then on the bench, you would have Monte, White, Michael Porter, and let's say DeMarcus Cousins. That's a really solid nine player rotation. The no players here are doubtable as playoff performers. Even Michael Porter, he stretches the floor so well. There is no question about would he be a positive piece in the playoffs or not.
Yeah, so that's an immediate. You're right. Like I would be more like completely open to it if we had both of these guys healthy, like both MPJ and Murray healthy, and so we can see like what's actually missing. And obviously White's really great, and he has defensive prowess, and he eventually could even start, or we probably will start, and he might even dethrone Barton sooner rather than later. Problem with him is the same as Barton, the injuries. Because we love Barton and we haven't seen him in the playoffs. Like he might be the solution that we want for the championship. How he, if he plays like he did after that Gordon trade. But with White, we have the same thing. He's really good and he torched Nuggets in the playoffs and he's been really productive in the bubble and everything, but just hasn't been able to complete like a season. He's been in 60s for the last 3, I think, in 67, 66 games. Like for a young player, that's not really great. Like you have to have won at least of 79 or 78 season games, like to actually show full potential. And that's the problem is like if you consolidate that, you lose flexibility completely because it's not obviously the championships are won in those margins, but if you trade both Zeke and Bones, you lose two positions. You basically lose for potential. Like you see what Zeke can do, and if he can stretch the floor and be that energy guy and cutting through the middle, you gain some gravity on offense through the big position. With Bones, if you trade him and Derek White gets hurt and stuff, you lose completely a one guy that can actually get you to the rim and knock down some 30-footers even. Because yesterday, Pelicans were getting back on Facu, and that was a nightmare. Like because then Forbes can get out of it. Boogie's not rolling as he because he's not a rolling big like a complete like high vertical threat for Facu. Bones comes in. They step behind the screen. He rises up from like 27 to 30 feet, knocks it down. After that, they have to fight over screens. Then the whole court stretches out, and then you can get Zeke cutting through the middle, getting layups and stuff. So for me, I'm always about more options than not. Like have more options than you might need, like just in case, because we've seen, especially with the Nuggets, we've seen injuries derail them just because of that reason that you don't have those specific roles. So in theory, like if he can be healthy, yes, great. Like because that's your point of attack defender. You can put him in there with Murray, and then you have an actual really nice defensive stopper, and then Murray you can hide and save him for offense. So yeah, but that's my only reticence, and which is again is something that I also said about Gordon, and he turned out to be great so far. So we'll see. Right. I mean, it would be hard. Like it would be great if we don't have to lose one of them. Like if you can keep at least Zeke again. That would be like a second year in a row trading a young guard, but still, like if you can keep one of the guys, just in case.
I don't think San Antonio is doing that for only one.
Yeah, of course they won't.
Yeah. It's a problem, of course, and I agree on all of those spots. But one thing we forget: this is all if Jamal is coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't need Bones in the playoffs if you have Jamal and you have Monte. There is no need for a third really talented point guard there. But yes, the availability is a problem. Derek White did have some availability issues before, but it's nothing really too serious, as I will show you soon. But the other two trade packages I made here, and with reluctancy, to be completely honest, is the trade that would involve either Monte or Will Barton. So
for who? For White?
For White, yes. So the package,
tougher,
the package that Deuce actually suggested was Monte, Zeke, and Vlatko for White. And I agree that giving away a good player like Monte would mean only with only one young guy attached. And if we would put Will Barton there, he has a big contract. He would need a filler next to it. It would need also one young guy next to him. But before anybody calls me insane for wanting to give away any of Monte or Will for Derek White, please let me show how the numbers portray him. Yeah. So if we look at the table here, Will Barton is a guy that plays the most minutes, but not by much. He has most points, most rebounds, most 3 points made. But in everything else, Derek White has the most assists per game. Now, there is a caveat here. He doesn't play with Nikola Jokic, so that's not fair to the other two guys because he doesn't have a center that puts 9 assists per game. But he's also the best in steals, also best in blocks per game. He has far more free throws attempts and makes than the other two guys, and he has a good percentage there. But if you look at the advanced numbers, you can see that his PER is the highest, the win shares highest, win shares per 48, box plus minus warp. And about the availability, I wanted to check that as well. Monte has the most games in the last three seasons, 200. Derek White is at about 170, and Will is almost at 160. So it's not a huge difference comparing to Will Barton. I would agree that Montemorris is a more dependable guy availability wise. Now you can close the. So another thing I didn't put on the table there is that Derek White is actually the best of the three guys as a pick and roll ball handler, which was quite surprising to me. He is in about 80 percentile of all the shooting guards in the league, and Monte is at about 60 percentile. Will is actually quite bad at like 45 percentile, something like that. So it's one thing also too. But I have to say, this wouldn't be a big upgrade. It would be an upgrade, I believe, but you're making a chemistry risk there because you have no idea how Derek White works on the team, and you're losing one guy to get another one that's slightly better. So I wouldn't do this, to be honest.
Yeah, well, the thing with I wouldn't like go with Barton and a young player. That's I think too much. Like Barton, if they're gonna go Barton, maybe a pick for like just go swap, basically get a starter, because Barton's contract, like he's expiring and he's also older. So maybe if you just switch out a player for that starting, shooting guard, maybe. But I think that's too much to go like Bones and Barton for White. Like I don't think he's that great. Even though I love him, like I would want him at Nuggets eventually, but not like this. Like I think it would be too much, especially for injury-prone guys. I said. So yeah, and then I saw a comment. I think it was Tyler again. Talk about basically getting like Justin Holiday. That was as I said, we did like the Serbian language podcast earlier, and I said like JaMychal Green would be like a candidate for me if we're gonna keep Boogie. And I think at this point, like for a minimal salary to the end of the season, it's not a bad deal. And you cover that backup center, and you have Zeke as like an emergency backup center. JaMychal Green then opens up that salary for maybe a wing, and so Justin Holiday was one of the guys. Is you think about a guy that's like you can play him or not play him. He's not going to cause trouble. He's a defensive player. He can knock down some shots, like if he's when he's open. What you want him from that kind of guy. So it'll be like kind of Torrey Craig upgrade. If you're not going to use Reed, that's another caveat of like if you're going to use Reed in that role, maybe like you don't need that type of wing. Like you can see something else and maybe just keep the rotation as it is. Because that's the thing, they know better than we do what they see in practice every day. Like
of course
we can't know. We can say from the games, but then so that's what I'm saying. Like JaMychal would be like a good now asset for trading because matching salaries. The numbers better than I do. I'm like talking more about basketball wise because if then he frees up Zeke's minutes, there's no like question if Zeke makes a mistake, Malone's going to pull him because he's young and doesn't think he understands. So like you get rid of a veteran that Malone might use as a crutch, not unlike Torrey Craig, Michael Porter situation. So that's one of my things. Like I would want to see maybe that happening, if anything, for the trade deadline. So
yeah, and maybe J-Mac even would be happy to be part of a trade, because
maybe
if he loses the minutes here,
Brendan was saying earlier in the comments, like if he loses, maybe he'd be up for it. So that's like you have to keep it open. And then just for the record, like for me at least personally, like it's Jokic and Monte untouchable for this team. Oh, actually Murray, obviously.
Just for the record, I never read the comments, not because I don't appreciate them. It's because it's too much for my old head. I'm not as young as Brendan or Voya, so Voya is conveying the most interesting comments to me live.
Yep, exactly. So we can go now. Finish up. We're almost done with our things. Just we're going to talk about our Burek of the week. So for what Burek is a nice juicy pastry dish that comes either with cheese, spinach, meat. It's well known because Jokic used to eat it a lot when he was younger, around the time when he was turning pro. So this segment will be like something juicy that we noticed, something big, maybe like high calorie count, or at least like because it can be either breakfast meal or just something if you eat it like I did when I was home for a couple of weeks, by like kilos. I'm kidding, by like pounds. So what my Burek of the week is, and what we're going to focus is Jokic's defense that I noticed this week, and then the MVP resurgence that he's kind of back in the forefront. in a lot of those, even like the advanced rankings, and then just people talking about it more than they have previously. So first, defense. I had a clip on my Twitter feed that I cut out from a game against the Grizzlies because I was traveling. I didn't watch it live, so I watched the replay, and usually that gives me a lot of time to. You can just return, obviously, and just see the play. There's a really good play, and it kind of epitomizes why Jokic is a good defender to me, and also why people don't consider him, because it's not a flashy play. So he kind of hedged out on John Moran, so he doesn't go through split the screen and get an advantage and go get a layup, but not too much because John Moran it's not a great shooter, so he can live with that. By that time, John Moran passes to the corner to Melton, that obviously, like Barton, has his troubles with closeouts, gets past Barton. And by that time, Jokic already sees that's going to happen, covers, but recovers that well that he blocks off Melton's drive to the basket, but also a dump-off pass angle to Steven Adams. And it's a very intricate play, and it just looks like Jokic is kind of just going up and down and doesn't do much because Barton comes up and blocks Melton. And I don't know if it was an out of bounds or they called a foul. Either way, he didn't get an easy layup. And so that's kind of the things that Jokic does. And because of his conditioning in the past few years, since like 2020, that like December or 2020, when he started being in better shape, he can actually cover those much better because he could always see those. That's the thing with him. He sees everything on the court. The problem is like if his body can follow what he sees. And we've seen the MVP season last year, like everything kind of fell into place because he can keep up with conditioning, he can keep up with a lot of centers and actually run past some of them. And the defense this year was that way too, because those blocks that he has in the point of before the offensive player even gets the ball out of his hands, he ends up blocking it and times it perfectly. Those are all the things he could do. It's just that there were a lot of times fouls because he couldn't get there in time with his legs. And now because he has better conditioning, he can do that. So like that was very juicy. And then just building off of that, you had the Detroit games with Kate Cunningham. And I was kind of mad that Matt Moore had this point on Locked On Nuggets before we got a chance to do this show, is that Kate's really smart and he has that uncharacteristic like rookie maturity. So he knows a lot of where he wants to go and how to use the advantages and disadvantages of the defensive players. Gets the angles, he has the athleticism, that knows how to pass, surveys the court, everything. And when he played against Jokic, I don't think he's seen a player that knows what Cade wants to do before he does it. Like what's the best angle to pass it. So we saw a lot of deflections, steals that Jokic would get on Cade because of that mind that he has. And so it was really funny. And obviously Cade was really good, and then he adjusted in the next game, but still had a lot of turnovers. But it was really cool just how that cat and mouse game, when you see him even one-on-one, like Cade wasn't running past him because that's not what he usually does. He like kind of snakes through easily and then like gets the shoulder in, takes the advantage. If the player is flat-footed or has a bad angle on his stance, that then he can take the advantage. So Jokic doesn't do that, and there was a lot of like settling for mid-range jumpers or like passing the ball to a second option, not the first option, because Jokic would cut that off. So that was really cool for me just to see like these like details that he can improve now because of his just more maturity and then conditioning primarily. So what do you think? Do you agree or any?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I really like that point on him having better conditioning compared to seasons before. But that actually joins my Burek of the week, and it's a bit controversial because it's something that really bothers a lot of Nuggets fans, but not me. And this is the thing: a lot of guys are back now, so Nikola knows he doesn't have to push on both ends for 35 minutes every game. So he's pacing himself, and I really like that because he's not taking rest games at all, and this is the only way he can have some rest for him and preserve his body for the playoffs. Yeah. You can see that in the first half of last game, and actually you can see that in a lot of first halves, really. So this is the reason why their first quarter net ratings used to be worse than they are right now, But let's not go let's not go back to that. But I like the way he's just taking over the game when it's really needed, and I think he is smart enough to recognize the exact moment he needs to do that. So this is why they're now so good in the clutch, apart from having almost everybody back, even without Will. Yesterday, that was 3 starters down, and yes, I know that the Pelicans are really terrible at the moment without their guys, but I like this, and I don't think he will be skipping any of the games before the All-Star break, and this is his way to pace himself.
Thanks for the compliment shirt. Yeah, the MVR Colorado fundraiser shirt. It's really great. I love black too, so it was also fit. I agree. Like the thing, he rests, and especially the point is when Murray gets back, he can actually get some offensive. I mean, hopefully we don't push him too hard right away. So eventually, when he gets back to it, he can have some of the offensive load on his back and have some plays that Jokic might not be involved completely. So that's also his rest possessions, and then he can kind of count during the game. Like I can rest a couple in the offense, then I can actually turn up some defensive plays when we need to. So, and that's of course because I said like he's well aware of the court at all times, like what's happening. So you can kind of tell like when he needs to step it up on defense, and then he gets his feet moving a little bit better. And sometimes it is what it is. And again, his also thing with playing, he had that comment a couple of years last year, or I think it was last year with the COVID. All the players eat the same bread, and we should be taking care of each other. And that's one of the reasons too that he doesn't sometimes want to try for like a highlight block, because there's a chance of both of them getting hurt, and there's no reason. It's a long season. Right. Those 2 points are not gonna decide the whole season. If those 2 points decide the whole season, they'll let it be. Like, better. It's like Danny Green said that, with Klay Thompson. Like, I'd rather have that play back than trying to block that shot, even though it was the finals game, and you kind of want players to have 100% all the time. Sometimes you just, especially in the regular season, just take a step back and move forward. Live to fight another day. So I think you're right with like his resting on defense, so people sometimes see those, and you can clip. That's the things you can clip. Corey Joseph killing him in the pick and roll, but it's like it's Detroit. Like they were already up. You don't need to exert your that much energy in that specific situation, because you're going to win anyway. So that's why I'm still, even though they played crappy teams and it was 4-0 and they were all like shaky wins, I don't think I've ever doubted any of those wins. Like, even though they were close and they were within 5-6, this is the kind of the Nuggets team I'm used to watching from a few years ago. Like when every game was close, no matter how the opponent, what strength of the opponent was, they would still find a way to win, even though it's, by 5 against Detroit or by 5 against Golden State with Durant, that kind of stuff. So that's, and that kind of fuels me, like, gets the MVP resurgence, kind of pairs it up, obviously, because he's so good on offense. But I think the complete picture for a lot of those doubters, that defensive clips that Kevin O'Connor and some of these guys do and talk about, those can be like added to the package of like, yeah, see, he's not only the best offensive player in the world and one of the best offensive players ever, he's also fits that, has the defense to do it as well, if necessary, because he's so good on offense. You need the defense to be just barely good for him to work, and I think he has really good defense, no matter what, like the haters might say. And then Ben Taylor obviously did the great video with collaboration with the NBA, just about what kind of savant Jokic is. So check that out. So what do you think about the MVP? Like, what do you think about the conversation? Is it tiring or
no? I love the MVP debate, because it makes no sense in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Now we are finally in the second half, so it kind of makes a bit of sense right now, and it's making me nervous, really, because I was so sure there is no way that Nikola is repeating as the MVP this season. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, when I look at the strength of schedule until the end of the season, and we spoke to Brandon about it before the show, there is a chance for them to climb up all the way to the 3rd position. And in that case, with the numbers he's delivering every day with the with how much things he revolves around him on both sides of the court. It will just be impossible to ignore that. And I'm looking forward to all the Stephen A, all the other national guys. What's the nice word?
Nick
Shitting
Wright.
on Nick Wright, shitting on him until like a week before the MVP votes are filed in, and how they will try to get out of those.
It's going to be interesting because I resign myself from like even expecting MVP this year, just because that it's like he got it once and it was already like that much of. The thing is, like, he was almost unanimous. The problem is the couple of key people at like key positions on TV were so against it that I thought that would drive like the guilt of some of the the local writers or people that voted of like, oh, maybe I made a mistake, blah blah blah. So I kind of resigned myself that he's not going to be. Kind of back heating up of like, oh man, he's close again to repeat. It'd be cool if he does it again. Brendan said in the DMR from the DMR account, if they're 4 or higher, I think he gets it. I think there's no question, especially when you take into account injuries. Another thing that really pissed me off with the discourse is I would have rather wanted to be like, hey, if it's a debate, let's debate on why someone is good, not why he's why someone is bad or shouldn't deserve it. Like if we're talking about mostly just it's always Embiid and Jokic.
We are literally speaking about 5 best guys in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
and we are shitting on them.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, Nick Wright comes out and says stuff like that, and I had a tweet about like don't give him attention, because the thing is, like, a lot of those guys, I don't consider them authorities on anything. Like they consider themselves authorities on basketball, so which is like sad. And people shouldn't give them that much credit that they know the amount that they think they know. And this shows it, because the fact that you don't see Embiid and Jokic and say, wow, what couple of great centers, like we should be appreciating how great they are, and highlight like what people, maybe like this one's better in this and this one's better at that, but not say this guy is trash, I'd rather take Embiid, or like this guy's trash, I'd rather take Jokic. That's like stuff that like is negative of the MVP conversation always, is because of that lack of imagination and like positivity, like that everything has to be crap in this world, like on TV, that people should follow. Like it's all got to be like the yellow journalism of, dredging up some drama or some controversy to get the views, is like it's sad that we have to, because it should be enough that it's good basketball. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like it should be enough that we have LeBron in his 19th year playing like he's playing, and Embiid and Jokic and Booker is embracing his villain side with the Raptor thing, and he's playing like his mind out right now. And even Gobert's decent for and important for Utah. So like I'd rather accentuate the positive than like try to downgrade one to improve the other. So that's my soliloquy.
Yeah, and Ray mentioned the big guy superiority right now in the league, and that's really exciting. It looks like Shaq against Olajuwon all over. It's really fun, and we've seen Jokic win the MVP as a center, as the first guy since Shaq, since like 20 years ago. So yeah, hopefully that will bring more variance to the NBA, and not only having
be more interesting. Like that's the thing, is like just try a little harder in the morning when they're doing those debate shows, of like just debate something that's actually like debatable, not like yelling into the ether. So and I hope he wins it. But if he doesn't, like I still won't be disappointed. It's not going to be an outrage. The fact is, like, a lot of players are playing well. Like it's not a
we'll see.
It's not like last year, like for me at least. Yeah, well, we'll see. But yeah, that's the thing, is like KD was hurt. KD was hurt and he fell out of the conversation. And at one point he was the front runner, and it was no question about it. So who knows? Like, it'll be fun. And obviously we didn't even mention Giannis. Like he's doing his thing, like he's been doing for the last 5 years. So that's and that's pretty much our show for today. I think we're getting close to getting to an hour. So I'd like to thank everyone for watching us again here and hanging out on the Serbian corner with the two of us. Hopefully we'll be back next week. We'll see how the schedule is, which days we're going to be back on. Follow us everywhere. I guess Twitter, DMVR on YouTube, Where else are we? Podcast feeds, DMVR Nuggets, newspapers, I guess. I'm kidding. Those are dead, unfortunately.
And don't forget to tune in 6 p.m. for the Goaties. It will be a great live show from 6 to I don't know when it ends, and it will be really good after 2 years again with the Goaties.
Agreed. Cool. Brendan, you can get us out of here. Thanks everyone. Idemo Nagitsi.